New bombshell details in the Epstein case.
I thought the case was closed.
Let's talk about it, y'all. Middle America. Well, shout out to Adar on the Middle America channel. If you, dear listener, want to be part of the Middle America channel, if you don't want to be left out, all you got to do is go to facebook.com/America Middle, where you would be able to hang out with us, talk, and suggest stories for review. Because the last 5 videos that aside from the Baghdadi stuff, but the last couple videos we shot before the Baghdadi stuff was directly related to feedback from folks in the Middle America forum on Facebook.
Viewers.
So, check it out. Also, hoodie season is on the way. And
what'd you say?
Hoodie season.
Oh, yes.
If you want to get your hands on some Middle America gear, like this awesome mug or the awesome hoodie that you see right in front of you, then all you got to do is click the link in the description and then you'll be able to do it. Okay, so we covered the Epstein case for our channel pretty thoroughly. We did about 3 consecutive videos in a row as details were emerging. We generally don't like to talk about things as they break because there's a lot of disinformation and misinformation. And we generally like to fact check beforehand. But the Epstein case was so provocative that we did 3 in a row so that we were able to correct ourselves. So at the time, I was kind of Mulder and Scully, you know, the X-Files things. One of them was like a true believer. The other one was very skeptical. I was very skeptical. This man apparently, just for review, if you've been living under the rock for the last half a year, this man had been running a child sex ring, which not just children, women,
like an island,
women
right?
as well. But he was a billionaire. He had his own island. He had some very powerful friends, not including the Clintons as well as Mr. Trump. There's pictures of him with Trump. There's pictures of him with Clinton. Clinton said he only flew on his plane a couple times. It turned out in the flight manifest, Clinton flew with him about 26 times. And then I said, yeah, but you'd figure if he was being killed, if he got disappeared, then people would have heard a scream or a scuffle. And the initial report was that wasn't the case.
Yeah. Wait, you said at the beginning of this that you weren't, questioning it.
No, I accepted the original report, which is that he killed himself. You question everything, and you're a massive conspiracy theorist.
I wouldn't say massive, but...
You're a massive... Well, you know what's funny is that the term conspiracy theory is now being used, is basically a weaponized term now, so that if you question anything, you're going to get called that. So. Right. And both sides are using it, you know, and with the Mueller stuff and all the rest of it, you know, which of course, I think it's an appropriate use of conspiracy theory when you've got Rachel Maddow talking about how the Russians are going to freeze us out of, you know. And then conversely, the other side, when you're talking about the Bidens and Biden suspending $1 billion so that his son wouldn't be investigated, that's the conspiracy. So they're saying that's a conspiracy theory. So now it's thrown all over the place. This one, though, I've been seeing a ton of memes. They'll say, how to eat candy corn, and it'll be open candy corn, throw it away, and then it'll say, Epstein didn't kill himself. It's just ways to get you to whatever. Well, Dr. Michael Baden, who is credentialed, one of the best in the business as far as being a forensic pathologist goes, was hired by Jeffrey Epstein's brother to do his own independent investigation. You will remember the very strange circumstances of the head pathologist of New York City, where initially she was saying, oh yeah, it looks like there's something here, this is strange, and then a couple days later, she goes, suicide, no, case closed. That was very strange. So they hired an independent contractor. They contracted with Mr. Baden, and here is what Mr. Baden has to say about the situation today.
Brand new claims about Jeffrey Epstein's death. Famed forensic pathologist Dr. Michael Baden saying evidence from his autopsy points more to homicide than suicide.
There are multiple 3 fractures in the hyoid bone, the thyroid cartilage, that are very unusual for suicide and more indicative of strangulation, homicidal strangulation.
Brian Yanis is live with more on what we're learning now. Yeah. Brian.
Sandra, good morning. Renowned forensic pathologist Dr. Michael Bodden was hired by Jeffrey Epstein's brother Mark to observe the autopsy. And now this morning, Dr. Bodden is contradicting New York City's chief medical examiner, saying physical evidence suggests Epstein died by homicidal strangulation and not suicide. He gives 3 main reasons: blood and hemorrhaging in Epstein's eyes and face, the depth and location of the mark in the middle of Epstein's neck, and lastly, Epstein's 3 broken neck bones.
These bones are rare, usually are not found in suicide. Occasionally, there's one bone, but to have 3 bones fractured, in 50 years of looking into prison deaths, I've never seen that.
Dr. Bodden, a Fox News contributor, has helped in several high-profile cases, including the Kennedy assassination and the O.J. Simpson trial. He was also the chief medical examiner of New York City. He is now calling for more DNA testing.
The DNA would tell whose fingers were on the ligature at the time it was created and at the time it was put around his neck, whether it's only his fingerprints or whether others.
Epstein's camp is calling on the DOJ and the FBI to release their investigative findings. They point to too many suspicious coincidences, like 2 guards falling asleep, Epstein being alone in his jail cell, and reportedly missing surveillance video from inside that Manhattan jail.
And the guy in the cell next to him saying he actually did hear screaming. Actually. This is pretty...
Squealing, I think was the word.
This is pretty damning.
Oh.
To me, in the sense of, this guy used to be the chief medical examiner in New York.
Yeah.
He's very high profile. I mean, the Kennedy assassination, I mean, you can't get higher than that in American. I mean, before 9/11, the Kennedy assassination was the event. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's strange, but the Kennedy assassination seemed to be more traumatic to Americans than even Pearl Harbor was. Probably because it was caught on camera, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I gotta give it to you. You're right on that one. I mean, I remember we were coming from the corn show when the next day we heard of, I told you about it in the car, and you were like, what? Mm-hmm. And you immediately did not believe the story. Mm-hmm. But you never immediately believed the story. But, I mean, obviously...
That one seemed more like, I don't know, stuff wasn't adding... Because there's sometimes where, like, the facts all kind of look like that's what's happening, but I still don't believe it. But that one was like, there was even facts that were like,
Yeah, I just... Trump's...
Sleep.
I'll tell you something. Trump's silence...
Like, he's a high profile. Like... Okay, you know what that one reminded me of, actually? Because I used to work at the hospital, and we had high-profile rooms. So that was if, for instance, this one time somebody had a house, they were actually very wealthy, and they left, and their kids threw a party. And when they threw a party, some people came in and realized what their parents had, and then came back later on with weapons, and went after all of them and cut the guy right in the back of the head and everything. So he was he went after one of their guys. I think one of their guys ended up getting killed, and so they were worried he was high profile because it was like, is that gang gonna come back to silence him so he won't rat him out, blah blah blah. Because like they did some pretty disgusting damage to this guy. But anyway, he was high profile, so we had to stay right there watching him all the time.
And this is a hospital.
And it was a hospital.
Not a prison.
Right. So everything was under high surveillance.
Right, and high profile in Maine is much different from high profile in New York City.
And this guy's situation was way less drastic than this Epstein guy.
Yeah, your point is... I gotta say also, the Clinton, Bill Clinton was really kind of zeroed in and implicated here because of the 26 trips but Trump was oddly quiet, especially after Epstein died. Very, very interesting. He was oddly quiet, and he just let it move on. And Trump, you would figure if he had the Clintons dead to rights and he was completely clean, that he'd be blasting that from the rooftops. Now, I'm very, very hesitant to make any sort of direct accusation about anybody, because these are serious charges here. You're talking about, taking part in a sex trafficking ring with many underage girls. So that's not something where we can just say we know that they did this. All I'm saying is it did not look good for Bill when he said he only did it a few times, when it turned out he almost did it. He did it 26 times, which is 24 plus 2, right? That doesn't look good. And based on the type of president we have, I mean, this is a guy who posted something big just happened after the Delta guys hit the ground on the Baghdadi hit. Yeah. So he talks about everything online, right. And so his silence is strange. Well, and that's as much as I'll say.
I mean, I agree that his silence is strange. I also think that, remember what he said about his daughter?
Yes.
That to me was extremely strange too.
Troubling.
Yeah. So that kind of was like,
yeah.
What type of person are you really?
Yeah. So look, the man obviously, and you know what's crazy to me is that this guy says, he says he's been doing it for 30, 50 years?
50, I think.
And he's never seen a prison death like that ever. So is it possible that even though this guy who's probably the best in the... Look at that guy's age.
I know.
That means he's seen a lot, right? So not only is he really good at his job, he's got a ton of test cases.
Yep.
So we got to defer to his wisdom. And unless the New York Medical Examiner comes out with a report that contradicts that, and then can say, here are X amount of examples where this same kind of ligature, then you got to go with what the man has to say. You have to.
Yeah. Was he saying that they're going to test was it a rope or something that was around Epstein's neck?
Well, he wants to do DNA tests because he says that will tell us whose fingers were around his neck or whatever. And what that tells me is that this guy is assuming as a given that somebody strangled him. He's not saying it's possible. He's saying the DNA test is going to tell us whose fingers were around his neck. That means he's completely, in my mind, he's ruled out suicide in that regard. Now, sometimes they'll say something like, technically, no, I'm not ruling out suicide. But when he said that, it's like, that's pretty crazy to me.
Yeah.
This is next.
And then now this opens more questions to me, specifically about the current medical examiner in New York City, who released that statement and said, "Oh yeah, it's all good, case closed."
The thing is, the one person said that they were kind of seeing something, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere, they're like, "No, it's good, it's good."
Right? Yeah.
So then you're like, "Okay, who threatened you or who paid you?" There's obviously some people still behind this thing.
Correct.
Chief Medical Examiner of New York City, he is now calling for more DNA testing.
Look right here.
The DNA would tell whose fingers were on the ligature at the time it was created, and at the time it was put around his neck.
It was created.
Yeah.
What's a ligature?
The ligaments in your neck, and they were snapped.
Why did he say at the time it was created?
Because he's saying something created that snap, So, but notice he says the fingers. We were told he strangled himself with a rope or tied a bed stuff around his. And he's saying and he's assuming in that statement he's assuming that there are fingers around this guy's neck.
Yeah.
I mean, so to me, he might not come out and say, "Oh, I'm completely ruling out suicide," because the technical headline is more consistent with homicide than suicide. So he's saying one is more than the other. But then when you hear him talk, you can tell what his personal, private opinion is.
Yeah.
He's saying, "Nah, man, somebody strangled homeboy, and we need a DNA test to figure it out." Look, are we ever going to get to the bottom of this? Probably not. Right? These are billionaires. These are people that have an assumption that they're completely above the law, and for the most part they are, because for the most part they've bought out the law. It just so happens that it's basically, you know, spy versus spy. It's billionaire versus billionaire, right? Because this guy's brother is like, wait a second. You know, stuff that would happen to me and you, where it would be like, you know, it's a real tragedy and that's the end of it. These guys are like, wait a second, no, we're billionaires. We can hire this guy out. I don't know how much they paid him, but this is New York's gonna have to answer for this one, man. They gotta do something, because you're right. This is crazy. Like, if that is the type of security that is given in a hospital, for very, you know, wealthy to you, sure. But nothing.
I mean, I don't even know if it was like wealthy, or if it was just because I mean, we saw it. People would rob you for $13.
Correct.
So it doesn't mean that there's.
Yeah. So good night. Well, there you go. I mean, we will keep you posted. Sad situation all around. But I think as you know, we deserve to know. The big thing for me about this...
I'll tell you the big thing for me after. Go ahead.
The big thing to me about this is that I would love for the official report to come out, because it would send a message to these billionaires that they're not always going to be above the law. And these politicians, if there are politicians who are really involved and everything comes out, that they're not always above the law, that sometimes they can get caught. Because that's how the justice system is supposed to work. These things are supposed to function as deterrents. And I don't think people realize how terrifying this is. Like, people don't realize it. Like, wait a second. All of us kind of, when all the reports started coming out, it started getting more, and we started seeing more and more details. I don't think I've ran into anybody that doesn't at least severely question the narrative. But most people I know are like, BS. He got killed for sure. And it's like, wait a second, like, we're just accepting this stuff. Like, I mean, hey, they killed him. And there's no repercussions at all. Like, that's terrifying that we live in that type of a country. And so, I hope, now, I'm not really a fan of the Epsteins. I don't know his brother. I don't want to play the guilt by association card. I don't want to say because your brother was a scumbag and did this to young girls that means that you are. At the end of the day, that's his brother. He loves his brother, you know, no matter what. So, you know, I'm not necessarily a fan of that entire family. But at the end of the day, his brother does deserve answers and justice.
Yeah, I mean, I totally hear what you're saying. I'll tell you what I would love. I would love the victims of this island to get some attention and to get some help. Where are the victims? Where are these young girls? What did they do with them? All these billions of dollars, or whatever, I don't really know billions, that was probably an exaggeration, is getting spent to find out. I understand why a brother would want to know how his brother died. That makes sense to me. But at the same time, I'm like, all this money, all this attention on this subject, like, at the end of the day, this guy had a terrible, terrible thing going on. And he's now gone. Probably to cover up other people's actions on that island. But
because it's apparent that he was going to sing.
Right. So they're like, okay, that's a problem. Get all that. But where are these girls? Where are these children? These women? These probably boys too that were on this island.
I'm very surprised that there isn't some class action lawsuit. These are billionaires. Like, these girls. You cannot put a monetary value on what they went through. And it's probably good that we don't know where they are. Like, let them live in peace. But at the same time, I hope that there is some sort of...
Wouldn't they say the victims from this island have been moved to a safe location? Nothing. We've heard nothing.
Well, I think I saw an interview with one of them. But your point is made. I mean, in these situations...
Why is nobody asking?
In these situations, the survivors never get centered. I agree. So I hope that there's some sort of class action lawsuit, and I hope there's some way to get these girls some millions so that they can heal out the rest of their lives this is a severe miscarriage of justice, and I will even say him getting strangled to death is a form of a miscarriage of justice, because he should have to answer.
Oh, I agree.
for what he did. Obviously, as Christians, we know that he's answering for sure now.
I totally agree. I'll tell you what, if I was in that situation, he'd have been kept under friggin' lock and key by myself.
Those
I
girls,
would have been watching that because I want to know what went on.
They deserve to be able to open the newspaper and see that he had to answer for it, he had to confess for it, and then, the fallout. But, hopefully they get some peace in, the man that did that to them is never going to do that again. But, there's people out there that are getting away with something.
People were either bought out or threatened. Either way.
Both.
Yeah.
And that the head of the medical examiner, she initially reported, that was our second video, she initially reported that something was off, and then a day or two later, she corrected herself. And you got to ask yourself, what happened? So there you are. Any other updates, we'll update you guys. Love your neighbor.
Take care of each other.
Middle America.
For heaven's sakes, we are the media.
Till next time, guys.